Hello friends, welcome back to VOWIAS. Welcome to the Prelims test series discussion. This is test 8 of Prelims and this is part 1 where we will discuss the first set of questions. So before we begin, a small information. The document that we are using for the discussion is the Prelims test series document that VOWIAS has prepared. So if you want to subscribe to this summary document, you can visit us or you can contact us via Telegram, or even you can leave your details in the comments. We will get back to you. So what we have done in this is, as you all know, Vision will give solutions for all the tests, and these solutions will be a bit bulky. Each test will have a solution of about 50-60 pages. So we have tried to reduce this 50-60 pages into 10 to 15 pages in a very summarized way. And we want to ensure that you remember all the important things. And that is what we have tried to do this in this summary document. So if you want to check its quality, you can check it from the Telegram as well. Now let us quickly begin the discussion. So first one, it is with related to temperature and water, the first question. If you say temperature and water, they both are very important for the sustenance of living organisms. The temperature, if you see, the average temperature on land varies seasonally and decreases progressively from equator towards poles. They affect the kinetics of enzymes and basal metabolism, activity and other psychological functions of organisms. A few organisms can tolerate and thrive in a wide range of temperature, and they are called eurythermal. The organism which can tolerate wide range of temperatures are eurythermal, but majority are restricted to narrow range of temperature and they are called stenothermal. Some organisms are tolerant of wide range of salinities and they are called euryhaline, but others are restrictive to a narrow range of temperatures called stenohaline. So haline means something related to salt, thermal means something related to temperature, and you have to remember these things. The eurythermal, that means wide range of temperature, and you have stenothermal, the short range of temperature. Next, the second question, this is with regard to the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972. If you see all the acts with regard to wildlife, if there is one act which has very great importance, that is the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972. And the question will definitely come in some or the other form related to this. This Wildlife Protection Act of 1972 provides the legal framework for the protection of various species of wild animals and plants, the management of habitats and control of their trade. It provides for forfeiture of any equipment, vehicle or weapon used for wildlife offences. It also constituted the National Board for Wildlife. And this Wildlife Protection Act of 1972 forbids hunting and poaching of wild animals. But Section 11 of this act actually permits the hunting in few cases. What are those cases? For example, the chief wildlife warden may, if he is satisfied that any wildlife in this Scheduled 1 of Wildlife Protection Act has become dangerous to human life or is so disabled or diseased as beyond recovery, then it can be killed. Also, the killing or wounding in good faith of any wild animal in the defense of any person, this also will not be any offense. That means if a wild animal is attacking you, you can kill it. But this animal which is killed, it belongs or it becomes the property of the government of India. Okay, this is what you have to remember. And under this Wildlife Protection Act, we have various schedules. The Scheduled 1 animals under the Wildlife Protection Act, they have this high importance with regarding to protection. Next, the third question, this is with regarding to important rules. The first is Allen rule and second one is Bergman's rule. Allen's rule states that in the cold climatic conditions, the mammals which are living there, they have shorter ears, limbs to minimize the heat loss, because if the surface area is large, then the heat loss from the body will be high. So in order to reduce this heat loss, the body size will be short, the ears will be short, the limbs will be short. Okay, and this is named after the American biologist Joel Asaph Allen. He proposed this in 1877. And next is Bergman's rule. Bergman's rule states that the organisms at higher latitudes should be larger and thicker than those close to the equator to conserve the heat. Okay, organisms at higher latitude means in the temperate zones and above. They should be larger and thicker than those living close to the equator to conserve the heat. For example, you all know polar bear. Polar bear skin is very thick. You all know penguin. The penguin skin is also very thick. So this is because they have to preserve the heat so that they'll store the fat in their bodies. That is the thing. Next, the fourth question is with regarding to photosynthetically active radiation, the PAR. Photosynthetically active radiation is the spectral range of solar radiation for the photosynthesis to take place, there is specific spectral range, and only that range will be used by the plants, that is 400 to 700 nanometers. Only this is used in photosynthesis by the plants. Except for deep sea hydrothermal ecosystem, sun is the only source of energy for all ecosystems. That means all the plants and everyone on the earth require the sun for their survival. But there are certain organisms which are very deep in the sea. They survive because of this hydrothermal ecosystem. That means the heat that will be coming out from deep inside the earth, they will use that. And the plant captures 2 to 10% of the PAR, that is photosynthetically active radiation, and this sustains entire living world. Next, the fifth one, this is with regarding to aquatic ecosystem. Aquatic ecosystem, if you see, that means the seas and all, they have various zones. The first is littoral zone. Littoral zone is the topmost layer that is near the shore of a lake or pond, and it is the warmest since it is shallow and can absorb more of sun's heat. It includes species of algae like diatoms, rooted and floating aquatic plants, the grazing snails, insects, the crustaceans, amphibians and all. These are the food for other creatures like turtles, snakes, ducks. Next is limnetic zone. Limnetic zone, you can say it is it is below this littoral. It is the near surface open water surrounded by littoral zone. So that is the difference. So surrounding this littoral zone, you have this limnetic zone in between somewhere like this. It is well lighted and is dominated by phytoplankton and zooplankton, and also variety of freshwater fish. Next, you have the profundal zone. This is a deep water part of the lake. It is much colder and denser. Generally, the hot water is light and the cold water is heavy density. Its density is high. The cold water density is high. The fauna are the heterotrophs, meaning that they eat the dead organisms and they use oxygen for cellular respiration. Next, the sixth question. So this question is with regarding to the biodiversity in tropics. Normally, if you see, the biodiversity is higher in the tropic regions. The tropic regions, in fact, if you see, over the period of time, that means over the ages, the tropics are not disturbed. We are seeing the periods of glaciation and all. This glaciation or this ice age, in fact, it affects the temperate regions more. But the tropical regions, if you see, most of the time they remain harmless, or you can say they are not impacted much. So the tropics, in fact, they have wide diversity even because of this reason. Over the course of history, this actually remained undisturbed. So if you see here specifically, the speciation is the function of time. Unlike the temperate regions subjected to frequent glaciation in the past, the tropical latitudes, they have remained undisturbed for millions of years. And also, if you see, there is this wide range of diversity in the tropical region because of the tropical rainforest. You have the tropical rainforest. There will be high concentration of these rains and all, and also the species diversity will be high because of that. There is sufficient food that is available. And the tropical environment, if you see, unlike the temperate ones, they are less seasonal, more constant and predictable. It promotes niche specialization. So because of this niche specialization, the more diversity will be there in the region. And this lead to great species diversity. The tropics have more solar energy and it contributes to higher productivity and great diversity. So this is about the tropics. Next, the seventh question is with regard to parasitism. The parasitism evolved in many taxonomic groups from plants to vertebrates. The parasites evolved the special adaptations like loss of unnecessary sense organs, adhesive organs or suckers, and they cling to the host. The loss of digestive system and high reproductive capacity can be seen here. And even in humans, the parasites affect. You have the term called ectoparasite. These ectoparasites, they feed on external surface of the host. Example, the lice on humans and ticks on dogs. Many marine fishes, they are infested with the ectoparasitic copepods. The cuscata is a parasitic plant found on hedge plants and has lost its chlorophyll and leaves in the course of evolution. It derives its nutrition from the host plant. Next you have endoparasite. They live inside the host at different sites, kidneys, lungs, the red blood cells and all. Their morphological and anatomical features are simplified, emphasizing on the reproductive potential. You have the brood parasitism in birds. That means it lets the host incubate them. During evolution, the eggs of this parasitic bird have evolved to resemble the host egg in the size and color and reduce the chance of host detecting a foreign egg and ejecting them. Here the parasitic species do not obtain the food, not dependent on other functions, but only to incubate the eggs and feed parasitic birds' chicks. This you can see in the example of the crow and quail. Quail lays eggs in the crow's nest. That is called brood parasitism. So ectoparasitism, that means outside, endoparasitism means inside, and the brood parasitism. Next, after this you have the 8th question with regard to the railway protection post. The RPF have conducted the search, seizure and arrest under the Narcotic Drugs and Psychotropic Substances Act. So this operation is called Operation Narcos. In June 2022, the RPF performed against the carriers of narcotics in railways. The 9th question is with regard to decomposition. Decomposers, they break down the complex matter into inorganic substances like CO2, water and nutrients. The dead plants remain like leaves. The dead plant remains like leaves, bark and dead remains of animals, including fecus. They constitute the detritus, the raw material for decomposition. The important steps in the decomposition are fragmentation, leaching, catabolism, humidification and mineralization. The detrivores, they break down the detritus into small particles called fragmentation. By leaching, the water-soluble inorganic nutrients, they go down into the soil horizon and get precipitated as unavailable salts. The bacteria and fungal enzymes, they degrade this detritus into simple inorganic substances, and this is called catabolism. And after that you have the humidification and mineralization. If they occur in the soil, the humidification leads to accumulation of dark colored amorphous substance called humus and undergoes decomposition at extremely slow rate. Being colloidal, it serves as a reservoir of nutrients as well. Humus is degraded by some microbes released into inorganic nutrients occur by mineralization. So this is the overall steps. First is the breaking down, that is fragmentation. Next is leaching. After breaking down, leaching is the next step where the soluble inorganic nutrients they go into the soil. Next you have catabolism. Catabolism means the enzymes they are degraded and further these substances broken down into inorganic substances, and that is called catabolism. And then you have humidification and mineralization. See, this question was asked even in the mains as well. What are the different stages in this decomposition? Okay, so you have to keep a close eye on these kind of things. The next one is with regard to environmentalist tribes. With regard to tribes, basically, the Bishnoi community of Rajasthan, if you see, they are the world's first environmentalist tribes. They remove the living insects from firewood before burning. They wait for trees to die on their own or fall during the storm. Their dead bodies are buried in the woods despite being Hindu. The Chinkara, the black buck and Great Indian bustard move in their settlements. Gonds, if you see, they are the largest Adivasi community in India of the Dravidian origin. And these Gonds, they spread over large areas from the Godavari gorges in the south to Vindhyas in the north. In Madhya Pradesh, they inhabit the dense forest of Vindhyas, Satpuras, Mandala in the Narmada region of the Amarkantak range. So Bishnoi, Gonds. And then you have Bills of Rajasthan. They are very famous. They are one of the oldest tribes of India. Once ruler in parts of Rajasthan, Gujarat, Malwa, MP and Bihar. They are one of the Dravidian racial tribe of Western India and belong to the Australoid group of tribes. They speak a language of Dravidian origin. Next, the Baigas. The Baigas are the ethnic group in central India, especially in Madhya Pradesh, in a smaller number in UP, Chhattisgarh and Jharkhand as well. Baiga means the sorcerer or medicine man. This is about the Baigas. Next, the 11th question is with regard to National Wildlife Action Plan. This National Wildlife Action Plan was first adopted in 1983, remember this. It was not adopted recently. And recently we have this National Wildlife Action Plan for 2017 to 31. So that's why we need to know about it. There are 5 pillars: strengthening the integrated management of wildlife and habitats, adaptation to climate change, promoting the sustainable management of aquatic biodiversity, ecotourism, the nature education and participatory management, strengthening wildlife research, enabling policies and resources. So these are the main important pillars. So Government of India in 1952 made an advisory body, Indian Board for Wildlife. The Wildlife Protection Act 1972 was subsequently amended during 2002, and the 2003 amendment for the Constitution of National Board for Wildlife. So it talks about the replacement. It talks about the chairman and all. The chairman is currently the Prime Minister for this National Board for Wildlife, and this National Board for Wildlife replaced this Indian Board for Wildlife. So a small amendment was done to this Wildlife Protection Act. Initially, this Indian Board for Wildlife used to be there, but in 2002 amendment, this National Board for Wildlife was constituted with Prime Minister as the head. Next, the 12th question is with regarding to sacred groves. Sacred groves means the trees and the shrubs which are to which these tribes they pray. These are considered very sacred and they are protected by these tribes. These are the tracts of the virgin forest left untouched by the local inhabitants and are protected by the local people due to their culture and religious beliefs. They consist of dense cover of vegetation including climbers, herbs, trees with the presence of village deity and is situated near the perennial water source. They are called with different names in different states. Sarna is in Bihar, Devvan Himachal, Devarkonda Karnataka, Kavu Kerala, Dev Madhya Pradesh, Devarahati Devarai in Maharashtra, Lai Umang Manipur, Law Kintang, Asong Khosi in Meghalaya, Orang in Rajasthan, Kovil Kadu or Sarpakavu in Tamil Nadu, Than in Assam. These are the various names. Next, 13th question is with regarding to ex situ conservation. Ex situ conservation. There are two types of conservation, in situ and ex situ. So, in situ is nothing but conservation of the species in that area itself. That means where the species originally is located. But ex situ conservation is conservation of wildlife outside the natural habitat under man's supervision. Example, the botanical gardens, zoo, aquariums, parks, agricultural research centers, the forest research centers, etc. If you see these botanical gardens, these are dedicated parks where there is collection, cultivation, preservation and display of especially wide range of plants labeled with their botanical names. Next, you have the zoo. The zoo is the facility where animals are housed with enclosures. They are cared for and displayed to the public and bred for conservation purpose. Next, you have the Biosphere Reserve. Biosphere Reserve is a representative ecosystem of terrestrial and coastal areas, internationally recognized within the framework of UNESCO's Man and Biosphere Program. So, Biosphere Reserve is a in situ conservation, because there we are conserving the entire biosphere, the entire area. We are not taking anything outside of this area, and we are not letting anyone even enter this area. So, that's the in situ conservation. Next, you have the conformer organism. Conformer organism, they engage in behavior to regulate the temperature, like basking in sun for the warmth or retreating underground or in water to cool. Some aquatic animals alter their salinity. Huge majority of animals and nearly all plants cannot maintain constant internal environment. Their body temperature changes with the ambient temperature. In aquatic animals, the osmotic concentration of body fluids change with that of the ambient air, water osmotic concentration and all. Many organisms, they sweat it out and resign themselves to the suboptimal performance in hot. That is called thermal regulation. The body temperature is regulated. For example, if you see humans, they have this ability to sweat out. Because of this sweat, the internal heat and all that is removed, and temperature is maintained. The body temperature is regulated. Thermoregulation is energetically expensive for small animals like shrews, hummingbird and all. At night, the hummingbird lowers its body temperature and metabolism by dropping it into energy saving state of inactivity called torpor. And you have the heat loss or gain function, which is the function of surface area. And small animals have a large surface area relative to their volume because they lose the body heat very fast. That's why very small animals are rarely found in polar region. And the regulators or the animals which can regulate their body, they are called warm-blooded animals which regulate their body temperature. Example, mammals, the peacocks and all. They can regulate their body temperature with the help of sweat and all. Next, the 15th question is with regard to green or sustainable chemistry. The green or sustainable chemistry focuses on the design of products and the process that minimize or eliminate use and generation of hazardous substances. Green chemistry in day-to-day life. The dry cleaning of clothes, the tetrachloroethene. It was earlier used as solvent for drying, cleaning and all. The compound contaminates the groundwater and is suspected carcinogen. The process using this compound is now replaced by a process where there is liquefied carbon dioxide with a suitable detergent, and these days the hydrogen peroxide is used for the purpose of bleaching. Chlorine gas was earlier used for bleaching purpose. These days H2O2 is the suitable catalyst. The green solution to clean turbid water, where there is powder of kernel of tamarind seeds, effective material to clean municipal and industrial wastewater. It is non-toxic, biodegradable and cost effective and is discarded as agricultural waste. Currently alum is used. It increases the toxin ions in treated water and can cause diseases. Next, the 16th question is with regard to species interaction. Species interaction means when there are two species and they are interacting, and if both the species get benefited, that is called mutualism. But both the species are not benefited, both are on the losing end, it is called competition. One species getting benefited and one species losing, predation and parasitism. And you have the commensalism, where one species gains and other species does not, or nothing happens to the other species. That is called commensalism. And amensalism means one species losing while other is not impacted. That is called amensalism. The same explanation is also given here. Examples, if you see in mutualism, the bees, the bees and the flowers, basically the pollination process, where the bees is getting benefited, the bees are getting benefited, they are getting the food. On the other hand, you have the flowering plants, the pollination is occurring and that is helping them reproduce. So that's mutualism. The predation, all the parasites, the predators, leopards, tigers, here one species have to depend on other or kill the other ones for their survival. In the parasitism, you have the parasites, the bacteria, fungi. And in the commensalism, where one species is getting benefit and other species is not affecting. Example, the relation between trees and epiphytic plants, the creepers and all. And on the other hand, you have the amensalism, where one species is losing while other is not getting impacted. That is amensalism. Here you can see the large tree shades. When there is a large tree, there will be small plants beside it. But these small plants getting affected because they will not get enough sunlight and nutrients because of the large plant. That is called amensalism. Next, the 17th question. 17th question with regard to Ramanujacharya. So recently the statue of peace of Ramanujacharya made of marble was inaugurated in Sonwar, Srinagar by Home Minister Amit Shah. Ramanujacharya visited Kashmir in the 11th century to get important manuscript, the Bodhayana Vritti. The Vedic philosopher and social reformer advocated equality and social justice and became flag bearer of Vaishnava sect, and he advocated the Visishta Advaitavad or qualified monism. Advaitavad, as you all know, is given by Adi Shankaracharya. And recently there was this statue of equality of Ramanujacharya that was inaugurated in Hyderabad as well last year. That was in news. Important writings of Ramanujacharya, we have the commentaries on Vedanta Sutras and his commentary on Bhagavad Gita, inspiration for the mystic poets Kabir, Mirabai, Annamacharya, Bhaktaram Das, Tyagaraja and many others. He initiated the concept of that nature and her resources like water, air, soil, trees, etc. They are sacred and should be protected from pollution and all. So this is about Ramanujacharya, the statue of peace and all. So here 18th question is with regard to the type of pollutants. On the basis of the origin in the environment, there are three types of pollutants. First is natural pollutants. That means they are occurring naturally without any human human interference, you can say. So they are the forest fires, which is started by lightning, the dispersal of pollens, soil erosion, volcanic eruptions and the gases which are released during the volcanic eruptions, the soot which is released, the volatile organic compounds from leaves and trees, decomposition of organic matter and the natural radioactivity. All of these things are the natural pollutants. Next you have primary pollutants, the harmful substance sorry, the harmful substance that enters into the air as a result of human activities. Example, when coal, oil, natural gas or wood is burnt, CO2 and CO are formed, and automobile contributes a large share of these gases. And the gas enter the atmosphere, and that becomes the primary pollutant. And you have the secondary pollutant where two or more pollutants react and a harmful third one is produced. That is called secondary pollutant. Example, the result from harmful chemical reaction between two or more air components. Example, sulfur dioxide reacts with oxygen in the atmosphere to form secondary pollutant. The sulfur trioxide SO3, it reacts with the water vapor to form sulfuric acid. Another secondary pollutant is tropospheric ozone. So these are the ones. And on the basis of the existence in nature, the pollutants are further divided into quantitative and qualitative. Quantitative means the pollutants exist in the nature, but when their concentration or quantity increases up to a critical level, they act as pollutants. Example, carbon dioxide, nitrogen oxide, etc. And the qualitative ones, if you see, they do not exist in the nature, rather they are introduced into the nature through the human or anthropogenic activities. Example, pesticides, the DDT, chemical fertilizers and all. Next question is with regard to radioactive waste. During the nuclear test, the radioactive dust may encircle the globe at the altitude of 3000 meters or above. This dust often comes down onto the earth as rain, and that is called radioactive waste. Other sources, if you see, of this radioactive waste, X-ray machines, they use these rare earth metals, so from there we will get radioactive waste. These machines are used in hospitals, airports and all. And also the waste which is generated from the nuclear industry. Next, the 20th question is with regard to productivity. In the productivity, we have various types: the primary productivity, secondary productivity. The primary productivity is the amount of biomass or organic matter that is produced per unit area over a period of time by the plants during photosynthesis. So the production by the plants during photosynthesis is the primary production. The rate of biomass production is the productivity, in fact. And this depends on the area, the availability of nutrients, photosynthetic capacity, etc. And in this you have gross primary productivity and net primary productivity. The gross primary productivity minus the losses during respiration is the net primary productivity. And you have the secondary productivity, which is the rate of formation of new organic matter by the consumers. The annual net primary productivity of whole biosphere is 170 billion ton of organic matter. Despite occupying 70% of the surface, the productivity of the oceans is 55 billion ton. Next, the 21st question is with regard to the People for Ethical Treatment of Animals, the PETA. This is an international non-profit charitable organization based out of Norfolk, Virginia, and it was founded in 1980. It is dedicated to defending the rights of animals and operates under the principle that animals are not to experiment on eating, wearing and entertainment and all. Next, the 22nd question is on important aquatic plants. There are various aquatic plants which are very important. Water hyacinth, if you see, this is called Terror of Bengal. It was introduced in India for the lovely flowers, but now it is damaging the entire ecosystem. It is leading to imbalance in the entire ecosystem. Next, you have the biological oxygen demand, the BOT, the biological oxygen demand, and this tells us the amount of biodegradable organic matter in sewage water. Next, you have water chestnut. These are tuberous aquatic vegetables that grow in underwater in marshes, ponds, paddy fields and shallow lakes. You have the water lilies. These are freshwater flowering plants native to temperate and tropic parts of the world. They provide food for the fish and wildlife but cause drainage problems due to their rapid growth, the water lilies. You have the pothos. These are low maintenance perennial evergreen houseplant in Acacia family. They are desired for its glossy green or variegated leaves on the cascading stems. Grows 6 to 8 feet as a horizontal ground cover, but trailing or climbing veins can grow as long as 40 feet, well suited for hanging the baskets. This is about the important aquatic plants. Next, you have the desert ecosystem. So if you see the desert ecosystem, the 1/5 of the earth's surface where the rainfall is less than 50 centimeter per year, that is called as the desert ecosystem. Example, the Sahara Desert, Arabian Desert, the Kalahari, the Namib of Africa, Atacama Desert of South America, the Thar Desert of India, Gobi Desert, the Mongolian Desert. All these things are there. And the features of this desert ecosystem, if you see, the rainfall is less than 50 centimeters. That is the first one. Soil is coarse and there is less chemical weathering. You have the finer dust and sand particles that are blown elsewhere, leaving heavier pieces behind. Canopy is in most deserts is very rare. The plants are grounded, they are hugging shrubs and short woody trees. Days are very hot and nights are cold. Predominant plants are succulent species with waxy surface like cacti, the cactus, which can conserve water for a long period of time, and the deciduous shrubs. They are also thick. They are also thick waxy leaves. They also have this. And most animals, if you see, they are nocturnal. They are active only at night because of the high heat and all. The camels, foxes, kangaroo, rats, squirrels, etc. are the major animals which can be found in the desert ecosystem. And also you have insects that have waxy coats and that decreases the water loss. You have short grasses that can be found nearly in all deserts. The desert plants include the sagebrush, the chrysotbrushes and cacti. Next, the 24th question is on important projects. First is Project Tiger. So some of the important projects, if you see, the first is Project Tiger. It came in 1973 for the protection and breeding of the tigers. So this is for the tiger conservation, administered by the National Tiger Conservation Authority. So this is a statutory body. So it is provided, or it is constituted under this Wildlife Protection Act of 1972. Next you have this Project Elephant. Elephant is a centrally sponsored scheme to protect the wild elephants, launched in 1992 in 12 states. Indian elephant, the Elephas maximus, occurs in the central and southern western Ghats, northeast India, eastern India and northern India, in some parts of southern peninsular India as well, included in the Schedule 1 of the Wildlife Protection Act and in Appendix 1 of CITES. Next you have Project Crocodile, to protect crocodiles from impending danger of their extinction in 1975. Here the breeding centers were established in different places of the country to increase their population. Today more than 30 centers are in operation across the country. Next, the 25th question is about the commercial plant based derivatives. First is nicotine. Nicotine is a plant alkaloid found in tobacco plant. It is highly addictive chemical compound. Next, you have the caffeine. It's a natural chemical with stimulant effects. Occurs naturally in 60 plus plants. Stimulates central nervous system, heart, muscles and centers that control the blood pressure. Quinine, obtained from cinchona bark, used in the treatment of malaria caused by the protozoa parasite Plasmodium, transmitted to the humans by the bite of various species of mosquito. Next, you have strychnine, which is an alkaloid found in Strychnus nux vomica, the medium-sized deciduous tree with straight and cylindrical bore, the dark yellowish grey bark and meniscus tuberculous. So this is about the various commercial plant-based derivatives: nicotine, caffeine, quinine and strychnine. Next, 26th question is with regard to air pollution. Air pollution, if you see, that is the pollution caused in the air because of the various effluents, various releases from various sources like industries, vehicles and all. You have this electrostatic precipitator, and this can remove 99% of the particulate matter present in the exhaust from the thermal power plants. A scrubber can remove gases like sulfur dioxide. In a scrubber, the exhaust is passed through a spray of water or lime. Particulate matter are very small and are not removed by the precipitators. Automobiles are major causes of atmospheric pollution. The catalytic converters, having expensive metals like platinum, palladium and rhodium as catalysts, are fitted into automobiles for reducing the emissions of poisonous gases. As exhaust passes through catalytic converter, unburned hydrocarbons are converted into carbon dioxide and water and carbon monoxide and nitric oxide, and they are changed to carbon dioxide and nitrogen gas respectively. The motor vehicles equipped with catalytic converter should be unleaded petrol because lead in petrol inactivates catalyst. So this is about the air pollution, electrostatic precipitator and the catalytic converters in the vehicles. Especially in the BS6 vehicles, you are finding these kind of catalytic converters. Next, the 27th question is with regarding to the abiotic factors influencing organisms. The organisms get influenced by various biotic and abiotic factors. The abiotic factors like temperature, it impacts the overall metabolism of the organism, and the levels of thermal tolerance of different species determine to a large extent their geographical distribution. how much tolerant they can be determines where they stay. You have the poikilotherm, that means animals whose internal temperature vary considerably and they have to survive and adapt to environmental stress. They are organisms with variable body temperature that tend to fluctuate with and similar to or slightly higher than temperature of its environment. Next, homeostasis, when an organism tries to maintain constant internal environment that permits all biochemical reactions and physiological functions to proceed with maximum efficiency and enhance overall fitness of the species. This process is called homeostasis. Next, the 28th question is on Lisbon Declaration, adopted by UN members at the UN Ocean Conference in Lisbon to scale up science-based and innovation actions and address the habitat loss, acidification and ecosystem degradation. Lisbon Declaration talks about our ocean, our future, our responsibility, and called the government to do more to prevent, reduce and eliminate the marine plastic litter, SUPs and microplastics. They welcome the decision made at the 5th UN Environmental Assembly held in Nairobi earlier last year to establish an intergovernmental negotiating committee to develop a legally binding instrument on plastic pollution. So remember, Lisbon Declaration is basically with regard to plastic litter. Just remember this thing. Lisbon Declaration, plastic. 29th question is on eutrophication. Eutrophication is the introduction of nutrients and chemicals through discharge of the sewage, industrial waste and fertilizer from the agricultural fields. The enrichment of the lakes at accelerated rate is caused by human activities and consequent aging or cultural eutrophication. The oligotrophic, very low nutrients, the mesotrophic, moderate nutrients and eutrophic, the highly nutrient rich. The eutrophication and algal bloom, if you see the eutrophic water bodies, they are rich in nutrients, support a dense plant population whose decomposition kills animal life by depriving it of oxygen. You have the effects of eutrophication, where it talks about the creation of a detritus layer in lakes and produces successively the shallower depth of water. So that means because of the eutrophication, the water density increases, the water thickness increases. Because of this, the depth of the water decreases. The water body is reduced into marsh, whose plant community is transformed from aquatic environment to recognizable terrestrial environment. The algal blooms restrict the penetration of sunlight, resulting in death of aquatic plants. They also restrict the replenishment of oxygen, which kills even the aquatic animals as well. And on the other hand, you have the new species innovation, where new species will come, they will lead to competition and that will decrease the amount of oxygen and water that is available to the native species. The ecosystem becomes competitive, and because of these things there will be loss of coral reefs as well, because when the new species come in, there will be less transparency, there will be you can say the water temperature also varies. All these things will affect the coral reefs as well. Next, the 30th question is about the effects of pollution on animals. The pollution have a huge impact on the animals. Being top consumer in the most of the food chain, humans are not directly exposed to the pollutants. They receive accumulated pollutants in great concentration, and there is a greater risk as compared to the secondary consumers. The air pollution causes different respiratory diseases in animals. The sounds due to explosions, fires, bullets kill large number of birds and insects. Terrorist camps in forest, they frighten wild animals during their fire testing and explosion practices. High-pitched sound is produced by supersonic planes. This effect produced in the atmosphere by the supersonic plane is heard by our ears in the sonic boom, and this generates enormous amount of sound energy, sounding much like an explosion. You have the carbaryl pesticide that kills honeybees, fish and birds. The toxaphene causes deformities in backbones of fishes. DDT retards reproduction of birds and cause thinning of their eggshells. In the marine environment, up to 2,500 birds are killed each year because of oil spills and all. The water and mud contaminated with pesticide, kill thousands of swallows due to the pharyngitis caused when the throats are exposed to these pesticides. Hundreds of cows die every year due to ingestion of food containing polythene bags thrown around the roadside. Large number of fish, they are killed in the lakes due to eutrophication as the water gets contaminated. So these are the various effects of pollution on the marine environment. So you can even remember this from mains point of view. Even in the mains, there can be a direct question on the effect of the pollutants on the animals directly. That can be direct question. Or if there is a question on effect of pollution, then we can write the pollution effects on humans, the pollution effect on animals, right? Like that we can write in various dimensions, and then we can use these points, the sonic boom, air pollution, the respiratory diseases, all these things. Now let's move on to the next question. The 31st question is with regarding to the Indian Forest Act. Indian Forest Act 1927, if you see, it consolidates the laws relating to forest, the duty which can be levied on timber and other forest produce. It empowers state government to notify forest land as property of the government and appoint officers to take care of the land. And also give many other powers to the state government, that includes state may declare any tree in the protected area as reserved, state may constitute forest or wasteland property of the government or over which the government has property rights, or the whole or part of the forest produce of the government is entitled as reserve forest. The state government may prohibit quarrying of stone, burying of lime or charcoal, or removal of any forest produce in the forest. State government may assign to village community the rights over any land constituted as forest reserve or reserve forest, you can say. And the shifting cultivation shall in all cases be deemed a privilege subject to the control, restricted and abolition by the state government. So this is about the Indian Forest Act of 1927. Next, 32nd question is on productivity. This is a repeated question. And 33rd question is on the POP FAME, the polycyclopropanated fatty acid methyl ester. The US Lawrence Becquerel Lab scientists, they have developed a fuel from bacterium that packs more energy than rocket fuel. It has energy density values exceeding 50 megajoules a liter compared with the 32 megajoules for petrol and 35 megajoules for RP1, which is a kerosene based rocket fuel. The POP FAME is a fuel, just remember that first thing. And POP FAME molecular structure, it resembles sentence, 3 carbon ring made of triangle and all. Right, so remember this POP FAME actually is related to fuel. You have to know this thing first, because in the exam they'll ask only the simple questions. It's us who don't recognize it correctly. Next, 35th question is on waste. Environmental Protection Act 1986 does not define waste. The waste generated during mining, excavations, etc. are the mining waste. Includes tailing, slag, heaps, debris, etc. In mining, the tailings are materials left over after separating valuable fraction from uneconomic fragments of an ore. Environmental Ministry revised the solid waste management rules in 2016, and some of them are. So these rules are applicable beyond the municipal areas to urban agglomerations, census town, notified industrial township, and the areas under control of Indian Railway, airport, airbase, port and harbour, defence establishment, the CES, central and state government organizations, the place of pilgrims, religious and historical importance. Source of segregation of waste has been mandated to channelize waste to wealth by recovery, reuse and recycle. Responsibilities of generators have been introduced to segregate waste into 3 streams: wet or biodegradable, dry, the plastic, paper, metal, wood, etc., and domestic hazardous waste like diaper, napkin, empty container of cleaning agents. And the integration of waste pickers or rag pickers and waste dealers or kabadiwalas into the formal system should be done by state government and SAG and other groups to be formed. No person should throw, burn or bury solid waste generated by him on streets, open spaces outside his premises or in the drain or water bodies. The generator will have to pay user fee to waste collector for spot fine for littering and non-segregation. So this is about the solid waste management rules and all. Next, 36th question is on national emblem. Recently, Prime Minister unveiled the national emblem, which is placed on top of the new Parliament building in a special ceremony. That's why it was in news. National emblem consists of Ashok Chakra. So you have, the line capital at Ashoka. That is the basis for this national emblem. It is at Sarnath. Here the statue is in 3D emblem showing 4 lines mounted back to back on the circular abacus. In the base you have animals like elephant, horse, bull and lion. These 4 are there: elephant, horse, bull, lion, separated by intervening wheels over the bell-shaped lotus and a dharma chakra or wheel of law carved on it. And you have the phrase Satyamev Jayate. Satyamev Jayate phrase is taken from Mundaka Upanishad. Next 37th question is on smog. Smog means smoke plus fog, that is called as smog. So during the winter times we will see the smog in general. Classical smog is it forms in cool climatic or humid conditions with smoke. The fog and sulfur dioxide, it is reducing mixture and called reducing smog. Sorry, just a minute. And effect of this smog, if you see, it has common components like ozone, nitric acid, the acrolein, formaldehyde, and peroxyethyl nitrate, the PAN. And both ozone and this PAN act as powerful eye irritant. So it has an impact on the eyes, it has impact on the respiratory organs and all. The ozone and nitric oxide, they are even irritants to nose and throat, and high concentration of them in the air causes headache, chest pain, dryness of throat, cough, and difficulty in breathing. How can this photochemical smog be controlled? So if we control the primary precursors, the NO2 and hydrocarbons, and secondary precursors like ozone and PAN, it will be reduced. That is the basic thing. You have the catalytic converters used in automobiles to prevent the release of nitrogen oxide and hydrocarbons into atmosphere. Certain plants, example Pinus, Juniperus, the Quercus, Pyrus, and Vitis, metabolize the nitrogen oxide, and therefore their plantations could help in this matter. Next 38th question is on coral reefs. So coral reefs, if you see, these are the massive wave resistant structures built by the coral and consisting of skeletal and chemically precipitated material. They are made by polyps, that is animals belonging to the class the Coelenterata, found in Gulf of Mannar, Pak Bay, Lakshadweep, Gulf of Kutch, and Andaman Nicobar areas. The pollution of seawater, destructive fishing, algal blooms and eutrophication, the coral diseases and coral bleaching, they cause the depletion of the coral reefs. The whitening of coral colonies by the loss of symbiotic zooxanthellae from tissues of polyps, and that is called coral bleaching. The zooxanthellae, if you see, the unicellular algae, and they provide color to the corals. They provide food to the corals as well. So the mutualism is something that exists here. Disease, excess shade, CO2 levels of ultraviolet radiation, the pollution, salinity changes, increase in temperature, all of these things causes the bleaching. So bleaching is nothing but the zooxanthellae, that is the algae which is living there, which is living in the tissues of these polyps, they will die, they will live. That is called as coral bleaching. The color of the corals is because of this symbiotic one, that is zooxanthellae. And other causes of coral bleaching, if you see, they are increased exposure to the UV radiation, large amount of storm water from heavy rains and leaf, the exposure of the corals to certain chemicals or diseases, sediments like sand, dirt covering the corals, excessive nutrients like ammonia and nitrate from fertilizers and household product entering into the reef ecosystem. All these are the major causes. Next 39th question is with regard to the National Forest Policy of 1988. According to this National Forest Policy 1988, 33% of geographical area should be under forest cover. That is the aim. Even today, this is only the aim for us. The salient features of this policy are maintenance of environment stability and restoration of ecological balance, conservation of natural heritage, checking soil erosion and denudation, increasing substantial forest or tree cover, meeting the needs of fuel, fodder, the non-timber forest produce and small timber, increasing productivity of forest, increasing the efficient utilization of forest produce at a maximum substitution, creating massive people's movement plus involvement of women. These are the various features, major features. This also includes the compensatory afforestation and wasteland as well. You have the CAMPA fund, the compensatory afforestry forest management. So that also is related to this. So this fund basically is given by the companies who cause some damage to the forest or who will use the forest for their needs, and they will give this CAMPA fund for the development of the forest, and this will be with the state and center. Next, the 40th question is on National Park. National Park is the place where the human activities like forestry, grazing, cultivation, they are banned. They are banned completely. A national park is defined by the state government via notification. State government can fix and alter the boundaries of national park with prior consultation and approval with the National Board for Wildlife. The Jim Corbett National Park was set up in 1936 as India's first national park in Uttarakhand. It is near Nainital. And wildlife sanctuary, if you see, this is a protected area for the conservation of wildlife, animals and plants. Human activities like harvesting or timber collection of minor forest produce, and private ownership rights are allowed. The wildlife sanctuary in this is species oriented, like pitcher plant, Great Indian Bustard and all. And you have the biosphere reserve, where the entire area is divided into three zones: the core, the natural zone, the buffer zone, and transition zone. The core zone, if you see, this is the undisturbed or legally protected ecosystem, and in the core zone there is no human activity that is permitted. And you have the buffer zone, where it surrounds the core zone and the human activity is permitted. And you have transition zone, where the outermost region of the biosphere is there, the area of active cooperation between the reserve management and local people, that can be seen. Next, 41st question is on important legislations. So the first important legislation is the Air Pollution Act, Air Pollution Prevention and Control Act. It was enacted in 1981 and amended in 1987 for the prevention and abatement of air pollution. You have the Water Act. It was enacted in 1974, amended in 1988. The Water Prevention and Control of the Pollution Cess Act was enacted in 1977 to provide a levy for the water pollution. Next, Environment Protection Act of 1986. This is for the protection of environment, empowers the government to establish authorities charged with the mandate of preventing environment pollution in all forms. Next, you have the Forest Conservation Act of 1980 to address deforestation through the Indian Forest Act. Though the Indian Forest Act is in force since 1927, this Forest Conservation Act of 1980 was geared to allow basically to restrict all kinds of activities, because this Forest Act 1927, it allowed the colonial administration for the extraction of timber. So, but this Forest Conservation Act basically plugs in all the loopholes. Next, 42nd question is on antibiosis. It is the association between two or more organisms. Antibiosis is association between two or more organisms detrimental to at least one of them. None of the species benefits. Example, some species of the blue-green algae that grows in the ponds produce toxic substances that kill fishes, plus cattle that drink water. In the marine waters, the population of some microbes, popularly known as rectide, causes destruction of fishes and other animals. So these are detrimental, and these are not benefiting anyone. So that is the kind of association. Okay. Next, 43rd question is about the kingdom fungi. It's a unique kingdom of heterotrophic organism. Some unicellular fungi are also there. Example, yeast. They are used to make the bread and beer. The other cause diseases in plants and animals. Example, wheat, the rust causing Puccinia. Some of the sources of antibiotics are penicillin. The fungi are cosmopolitan and occur in air, water, soil, and animals and plants in warm, humid places, except yeast, which are unicellular fungi, are the filamentous. The network of hyphae, the mycelium, some are continuous tubes filled with multinucleated cytoplasm called the cenocytic hyphae. The others have the septic or cross walls in the hyphae. The cell walls of the fungi, they are composed of the chitin and the polysaccharides. And if you see, there are fungi that can live even on symbionts in association with algae as lichens and with the roots of higher plants as mycorrhizae. The reproduction takes place by vegetative means, the fragmentation, fission and budding. Asexual reproduction is by spores, the conidia or zoospore, and sexual reproduction is by oospores, the ascospores. Various spores are produced in distinct structures called the fruiting bodies. When they reproduce sexually, two haploid hyphae of compatible mating types come together and fuse. In some fungi, fusion of two haploid cells results in diploid cells, but in other fungi, the ascomycetes and the basidiomycetes, an intervening dikaryotic stage will be there. N plus n minus 2 nuclei per cell occurs, and this is called as dikaryon, and the phase is called dikaryophase of fungus. So this is about the fungi family, the symbiotes, the haploid hyphae and all. Next, the 44th question is on the flora in different forest. Tropical forest, if you see, they have plants like orchids, the bromeliads, the vines, ferns, mosses and palms. In temperate forest, you have trees with broad leaves and also they shed their leaves during dry season, like oak, the hemlock, maple, the basswood, cottonwood, willow, etc. You have the taiga forest that consists mostly of cold tolerant evergreen conifers with needle-like leaves like pine, fir and spruce. Next, the 45th question is about the biological oxygen demand, the BOD. It is the amount of oxygen needed by the biological organism like bacteria in a given water sample for the breakdown of organic matter by the oxidation process. It is used to measure the total amount of dissolved oxygen used by the microbes in metabolizing organic molecules present in the water. So the oxygen generally is needed for the breakdown of various things. It is needed for the breakdown of all these inorganic compounds and all. It tells us the amount of organic pollutants, amount of organic pollution present in the aquatic ecosystem. It also regulates the chemicals, the chemical oxygen demand of organic matter. It is used in sewage treatment of the wastewater treatment to destroy and decay the organic waste through the aerobic organisms, because the aerobic organisms basically need oxygen for the breakdown of these molecules, or you can say these waste in fact. The BOD also determines the amount of organic matter present in the soil, sewage, sediment, garbage, sludge, etc. It detects the rate of respiration in living beings used in medicinal and pharmaceutical industries to test oxygen consumption of cell cultures. High BOD means the amount of dissolved oxygen available for other marine organisms like fish is very low. That is, they causes the mortality of fish and other aquatic creatures. Hence, wastewater treatment plant aim to lower their BOD, the biological oxygen demand, before discharging effluents into the water body. That means the basic meaning is that when there is high BOD, when there is high demand for oxygen, what does that mean is there is high waste in the water. There is high waste in the water. That means the oxygen available for the fishes and other organisms is very less. The fishes will die. So when you remove these waste, then the bacteria that will be present in the water will be low. So the oxygen that will be used by the bacteria also will be low, right? So when the bacteria is low, when the wastes are low, then fishes will have sufficient oxygen. That is the whole concept. Okay. So these are the questions for the day. We will meet again tomorrow with the next set of questions. Till then, keep studying and stay tuned. If you have any queries, do leave in the comment box. We will get back to you. Thank you.